problem with Lana Del Rey is this paragraph, right? These two paragraphs. Never have I been like so misled in my entire life. You ever had somebody ask you a question and you are not the demographic with whom that question should have been asked in the first place? First thing I saw when I read this was question for the culture. Read the entire thing and I'm like, what the fuck does this have to do with culture? Now, for anyone who thinks I'm being purposefully obtuse to any of Lana Del Rey's points in these two paragraphs, I'm not. I understand and I realize, Jesus Christ, I realize that women have the right to express themselves in whatever way they see fit. Everyone should have that right. Her point here is to say that there is a certain type of society that champions women in certain lights and doesn't champion women in certain other lights. She essentially believes that women should have the right to portray themselves in whatever role they see fit and still be looked at as strong, still be looked at as just as valuable as one who might portray herself in a strong, independent light, one that does whatever she wants, whenever she wants. If you ever listen to Lana Del Rey's music, you know that a lot of it is kind of rooted in like this 1920s, 1930s, 40s, 50s atmosphere. You ever talk to a girl that's like, oh, I want to be in a love story from the 50s. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, so you like racial segregation, bitch, all right? You don't like when women have the right. I see exactly where your head's at. In all seriousness, I know what people mean when they say they like to be in an older time because they think things were simpler. But in reality, things were just much worse. But that's a lot of what her aesthetic musically is. She's trying to make herself seem as though her experiences, some of which she's admitted to fabricating and just thinking of herself, are oppressed, are looked at as less valuable than that of a Beyonce, that of a Nicki Minaj, that of a Doja Cat, Camilla, a Cardi B, a Kehlani. Like, I don't get how, in what way she's just like missed the past 10 years, especially with Beyonce and Nicki Minaj, who've been ridiculed and criticized just for shaking ass in music videos, who've been called everything but Sister Mary from both conservatives and liberals who think they show too much skin. I've literally watched these two get body shamed for God knows how long. But I guess in Lana Del Rey's eyes, as long as she's looking at you and you're at the top of the charts or above her in any way, shape, or form, you are, for some reason, just less oppressed than she is. And look, don't get me wrong. I like some of Lana Del Rey's music, all right? That melodrama project that she put out, a couple years ago and almost got a Grammy for was crazy. Oh, that was Lord? Nah, didn't Lana Del Rey make that one song, Young and Beautiful? She might be Lana Del Rey. What she said is so stupid and so fucking ridiculous that she acts like Beyonce and Nicki Minaj and all the other artists that she may have mentioned haven't also gone #1 with songs that are introspective, haven't also topped the charts with songs that were expressive emotionally, haven't also topped the charts with songs that expose a bit more vulnerable side of themselves. I don't know what world she lives in where she thinks, oh, I'm the only one that's making this particular type of music. And because people criticize it and because people don't champion it the same way I feel they champion other artists that I might look at from a very narrow point of view, they somehow have it easier and I'm somehow looked at as the odd one out because I'm so different, I'm so creative, I'm so expressive, acting like people didn't go crazy over Fiona Apple dropping her great record this year, acting like people didn't go just as insane over what, in my opinion, should have received much more buzz than Norman fucking Rockwell, FKA Twigs album Magdalene, that exposed femininity in its most shattered form. Then you got YS Blood, who portraying nothing but confusion and a willingness to understand their makeup. He's acting like music like that hasn't been championed over the last few years. Maybe, and this is a big maybe people just don't fuck with your music like that. Maybe I'm tired of hearing stories about how you want to be a housewife in the 1950s. I don't give a fuck. All you had to do was sit there and smoke your cancer sticks. But no, you had to drag other people into this nonsense. You want the freedom to talk about whatever you want as a woman and not be misinterpreted for glamorizing emotional abuse. He's saying there's nothing wrong with putting a woman in a submissive role if the woman has the wherewithal and she hasn't been manipulated into thinking that way. There are some women that like being submissive. There are some women that like to be I won't say dominated, but like to be in the passenger seat. And because they like doing that, this does not make them emotionally weaker than a woman that doesn't like that. You want to be able to do all that without being called a pick-me. I understand what you're saying. But stop trying to make it seem like, because I'm getting criticized in some spaces for being submissive, let's pretend like these artists that are on the top of the charts aren't also being criticized and ridiculed for being too open, aren't criticized and being ridiculed for being too revealing, aren't criticized for being too loudmouthed or having too much of an attitude. And even worse, yes, I'm gonna say it, even worse, you talked about it to a group of women that for the most part are minorities, with the exception of Ariana Grande and Camilla, whatever that chick's name, who's, the N-word girl. Is that really the group? Is that really the best group you could have picked to illustrate your point of oppression? An already oppressed group? I don't get how you unintentionally did the exact same thing that you criticize people for coming at you for to another group of women that are more oppressed than you generally are. If you'd call what you're going through oppression at all, I can imagine Meg Thee Stallion's Big Ol' Freak song coming on, and then Lana Del Rey just having a complete breakdown in the corner. Beyonce comes in with her verse about OnlyFans, and then Lana Del Rey's just like, oh my God, I make songs about love. And then everybody's just looking back at her with the Waka Flocka meme face, like, okay, you can do that. Crazy that to find oppression, Lana Del Rey had to go to the internet. It don't just exist in her day-to-day. Like, you literally had to make yourself pissed off about some shit. That's the level of privilege that you got right now. Lana Del Rey did the equivalent here to what lyrical rappers do to mumble rap fans, right? Like, they complained about mumble rappers, quote unquote mumble rappers, and they're like, oh my God, these people love these people, but I'm over here making lyrical content. My story matters. Never paying attention to the onslaught of hate that these rappers get on a day-to-day basis just for not having the same style that these people might like. And so what does that lyrical rapper do at that point? They go on and they start making diss tracks to the mumble rappers that aren't paying attention to them anyway, and they start rapping from the perspective of someone that's been, like, done wrong or somebody that's oppressed. Nigga, you can still make your music. People are allowed to not like it. If anyone's glorifying anything, I could say The Weeknd probably faces criticism for glorifying his relationship with drugs. Do you remember the hate that Beyonce got for making her music about police brutality? Do you remember the hate that Ariana Grande got just for performing at that concert? People made it seem like that whole situation was her fault. Every person that she talked about has literally been through 10 times worse what she's talking about. And in some of those cases, very little of it had to do with the music. A lot of it had to do with their skin tone. I'm not the biggest fan of Nicki Minaj or anything like that, but, like, come on, my guy. We gonna sit here and pretend like she didn't get shamed for doing literally anything for almost an entire decade? Last thing I'm gonna do is allow Lana Del Rey with her Mayo mischief to come in and talk about music from artists that I grew up with. And I'm not Beyonce's biggest fan, but I grew up with enough of her music in the background to know that she topped the charts with a lot more than just songs about sex and shaking ass and all this other stuff. I know that. If those people can handle all of that, I'm sure you can handle someone calling you a pick-me every now and again. For Christ's sake, stop acting like you're the first person to make this type of music, okay? There are plenty of artists that never got the type of light that you got, that also are black, that are also minorities, that made even deeper music than you did about the same topics that never even got the shine. They've been doing it for years before you, and never in their mind did they say, you know what? You know who really needs to be criticized right now? Them niggas. Lana Del Rey, you are not a victim. You're a Karen. And that's all I got. Please, man, I'm tired of it, all right? This Mayo mischief, this milk mayhem, it's not attractive, all right? Let it go. You want to top the charts and you think singing about these things will make it easier for you, you could have tried that, but you didn't, because you know that ain't you. But don't try to make it seem like that's all there is to the artists that you mentioned, because it's certainly not.